You're listening to the Global Ed Podcast, where educators share inspiring and thought-provoking stories from around the world.
In this episode, I speak with the former Minister of Education for Finland and the current Director General of the International Baccalaureate Organisation. Welcome to the podcast, Olli-Pekka.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
You've been the Director General of the IB since 2021, but prior to that you held a number of political offices, including being the Finnish Minister for Transport and Communications and, importantly, the Finnish Minister for Education. Was it always your ambition to get into politics and be involved in public policy?
I would say it was an accident. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have been interested in kind of public matters and kind of policies and politics. I have from a very early age, but I've never thought of kind of having politics as an vocation or a job. So it was really, there were many accidents that happened. I studied law and I was about to become a lawyer and do the thing that lawyers normally do. But then a friend of mine asked that if I would come and fill in a vacancy for a year in the Finnish parliament, just when I was graduating from the university. And I thought that, well, that's a very kind of interesting place to have a general view of the world. And I accepted and I went there. And then after a year, one of the members in the parliament that I had been working with became the Minister for Education. And she asked that if I would like to join her and become her special advisor. And I said again, well, that's an interesting opportunity to have another perspective on the world. And joined and was there in the ministry for 3 years. And then that lady became the Speaker of the Parliament. And then I was kind of about to kind of return to my initial ideas of kind of doing kind of lawyer jobs. But then kind of 2 days before the new minister was elected, somebody called me and asked that would I be available if they would use my name for the position. And I thought it was a bad joke. And I didn't really answer anything. Then they called me half a day later and they said that they have now spoken with a lot of people, and if I stand up, there's a good chance that I'll be elected. And then I had the discussion with my family, and we've just we were kind of had first child, and the second was on her way, and we spoke with family that, well, it's a kind of a unique opportunity that for a year I'm ready for it, because that's when the elections were after a year, and so I accepted, and so I became the minister for education, and that project became a bit longer than I thought. I was a minister consequently for 8 years.
Having accidentally got into politics and found yourself as a minister, and in particular Minister of Education, was that something that you'd always desired? Had you had an education background? Is this something which you had aspired to become at some point throughout your career?
Well, maybe yes and no. I was born to a school. We were living in a school when I was born. My father was a teacher in that school, and our apartment was part of the school building. So in that sense, I've kind of grown into the rhythm of school, and I've always been very, very interested in kind of human growth and developing, understanding what it means to be human, about kind of innovation and learning. So those have been very close topics for me for a long time. So I guess it was an area where I had a lot of interests in, and then the opportunities opened through them.
So, you've probably already heard a bit about education in Finland.
That we have less homework than other countries.
We have shorter school days than almost anyone else.
And our kids don't even start school until they are 7.
And yet we have one of the most high-scoring education systems in the world.
So, how do we do it?
Finnish education has a very good reputation around the world for excellence. So when you took over as minister, what were your plans to have a continuous process of improvement for a system which was already by most metrics excellent?
When I started as a minister, I had the pleasure of working with my predecessor, who was a very talented educational thinker. And I would say that there were kind of two main topics that I had in mind. The first one was that those were the years when Finland became the member of the European Union. And that meant that there was kind of, the Finnish society opened up in many ways. And there were kind of a lot of ideas also that should be kind of somehow made visible in the curriculum, that there should be more choices with subjects, with languages, and so on. And then there was a kind of a situation that there was a push that should we follow Sweden, who created kind of a private school system besides the public school system. And that was the question. And my view was that not to go that route that Sweden had taken, but to open up the public system curriculum to offer more kind of room to make choices for students, but also for schools. So that was the other thing that I had in mind. And the other one was really to give more decision power to schools, to municipalities, to make decisions on education. The teacher education had been a master level education in Finland since 1972. So we had pretty much of the teacher force was kind of master level qualified. So I saw that there was the maturity to take more decision power off the teaching and learning and the things that happened in school to the hands of the teachers and the local decision makers.
From your time in politics, when you look back and reflect on all that you had to deal with, what are some of the things that you have learned from that experience?
Yes, I think there was a lot of things I've learned. Of course, maybe the biggest learnings is that how to get things done when people have different views, to be able to bring people together, to listen, and then to create a process of decision making that everybody can count on, even though the outcome might not be exactly what they have wanted, but they know that there was a fair process how that decision was reached. So I think that was one of the big learnings for me. Maybe the other one was really the thing that understanding that education is a special field, that you cannot really make things happen there by command and control. That you have to be capable of having the internal motivation and the shared view of purpose among all the stakeholders in order to really to get things done. And that takes some time, but I think that time is kind of worth, and it's well spent time for the change making.
You said earlier that you accidentally got into politics, but you spent a long time there. You were very successful during your time in office. So when that came to an end, did you have a plan of what the next steps for your career would be?
No. I've kind of, all my kind of changes in my career, they have been kind of accidents. They've not been planned. I've never had that kind of a plan that I want to be there. I have had definitely plans how to develop myself, and I've learned to work hard, but kind of making career plans hasn't been the thing for me.
What is IB? International Baccalaureate, IB, is a challenging education program that aims to create knowledgeable, well-rounded, and caring students. IB schools offer programs that go more in-depth in courses and allow students to do their own learning within each subject area.
Inspiring.
Goal-oriented.
Knowledgeable.
Empowering.
Academic. Challenging. Global.
Thought-provoking. The IB exposes me to new mindsets and helps me understand various viewpoints.
So, with no career plan in mind, how did you become interested in taking on the challenge of being the Director General of the IB?
Well, it was when the first approach happened, when I was approached by a board member who kind of made a preliminary ask whether in any circumstances I would be interested, and that's when I started thinking about it. And I would say that there were two things that drew my attention. It was not definitely planned, but there were the idea of, I had kind of several leadership positions in the society involving both the public and private sector. So I kind of knew what is the leadership challenges in a national level. But the thing that I had never experienced, although I've been active internationally, what does it mean to lead an international, a global, truly global organization? All the complexities that brings with it. And that really kind of triggered me. I really was looking for that challenge. And the other one was also, of course, was the mission of the organization, that looking around the state of the world and having a mission of supporting students to make a better and more peaceful world. What else can one wish for a job these days?
Yeah, 100% agree. Did you find that your previous roles in politics helped you as you commenced your new role?
Well, I think it has, because I think IB is also it's an education system. It is truly an education system. It is. It has all those qualities that national education systems have, but it's global. And as I said, that global creates those complexities that there are. And the more important it is that you, when thinking about change, that you involve all the actors. You bring them in, and you also count on the kind of bottom-up power of innovation. And that's a very, very strong element of IB. Has been actually from the very beginning, because in a way it was kind of school-led initiative. So it's been kind of easy for me to come to that kind of a culture from my previous experiences. Maybe the other thing is that I'm used to building trust as a central element of leadership. And I think that has been very useful because you can't make change happen if people don't trust each other and there isn't kind of visibility and shared commitment to the purpose of what we are trying to reach.
So you've been in the role now for a few years and using one of our learner profile traits, reflection. What were some of the initial challenges that you faced and what was your approach to overcoming them?
Well, frankly, I must say that I was not that aware of the kind of dynamics that had happened inside the organization. Of course, I know what IB was kind of generally from my earlier experience from Finland, but I didn't know the organizational reality, and there I would say that the Board of Governors, they had quite a clear view of the challenges that there were, so they gave me in that sense a lot of support at the beginning, and then my way of kind of coming into a new leadership position is to work very hard for the first couple of years, because you have to read, you have to meet people, you have to kind of get a lot of information in, and then you start to kind of see patterns and you start to kind of get a bigger picture and through kind of errors and failures, you start to see that what is the big picture and what would be the future direction of an organization for it to be better capable of fulfilling its purpose. So in that sense, it's been a very steep learning curve for me, but I've really enjoyed it.
What have been some of the moments of joy that you've experienced working within the IB?
Well, of course, I do visit a lot of schools, and those are always moments of joy. You see the students, younger and older, and their enthusiasm to learn. And you also see that relationship and that connectedness with teachers, with other personnel in the school, how they interact with respect and care. Those are kind of special moments for me. Then I think that it's been, I've really enjoyed seeing that the organization is kind of starting to move to the direction of not only looking at the organization itself, but looking at the wider IB community and kind of having that power of empowering associations, groups of schools, heads, the other kind of advisory bodies that we're having, the IBAN network, all that, and them kind of coming together. That has been also another issue that has created a lot of joy for me.
These days, most countries have understood that the quality of their schooling today is the strength of their economy and society tomorrow. But the bigger challenge now is to make lifelong learning a reality for all. That's also in focus in the Sustainable Development Goals, which the United Nations have set for 2030. And Education at a Glance provides a first account of where the world stands against those targets. And it shows that the world is still a long way to go.
There's a lot of global challenges at the moment, and the world's been described as getting more volatile, more uncertain, more complex, and a greater sense of ambiguity with events. And so what do you see some of the challenges being going forwards, and what solutions do you think education might offer to those challenges?
I don't think one can separate the challenges of education from the challenges of the world. Because education, in a way, it is also a means in that sense that it's the strongest vehicle for societies to change themselves. And when we are looking at the world, there is definitely need for change. We are not in a good position. And then it's really the question that how the education can change. Because if we start talking about the challenges of education, then we end up in a discourse which says that education is actually part of the problem. That it's a big problem that there aren't enough teachers, the learning outcomes aren't getting better, there are too many children out of schools, too many children who are not learning anything although they are in school, and so on. And that makes education a problem. And we should be capable of moving to another discourse, which is the discourse of what education has to offer as a solution. And then we really come to the transformative power of education, understanding that that we need to give the young generations, we need to give them all the kind of wisdom, all the learnings of sciences, arts, cultures that we have gained, that we hand them over, we transfer them to the new generations. But that's definitely not enough today. Because if we only rely on that, we will pass on also the problems that we have caused with our decisions. And therefore, we need to help our students and young people to come to different solutions that we have come. And that really brings the shift to the question also of competencies, that how can we more give them competencies to create their own future paths. And in a rapidly changing world, they will be faced with problems that we do not know today. Unexpected situations, a lot of unknown territory, and how to live there is the question that we should be capable of giving them capacity with. And not only kind of survive, but to thrive, to flourish, feel safe and secure in that kind of a world. And then we come to the questions that are much discussed, but we haven't really been capable of embedding them well enough in different education systems in the world. That kind of 21st century skills, we've spoken about those already for at least 30 years. And not much progress had been made, generally. And it kind of gets me worrying that does it mean that they are called 21st century skills for the reason that it takes a century for us to implement them? And that might well be the case. But then we're coming also to the questions of like well-being. And I'm not talking now about everything being nice and easy. I'm talking about the well-being as a life skill, how to manage stress, how to go through challenges in a way that they won't break you. And that kind of skills seem to be becoming more and more important. And of course, one element is the question that how do we connect, how do we build in our curriculums, in our teaching and learning, elements that are meaningful for the young people? That making sure that the world that the young people have inherited from us, they have a direct connection with that world and reality. And that connection is made stronger during their school years, which enables them to cope with it, to cope with the world that too many young people are kind of not feeling very comfortable with kind of being part of. And then we come to the questions of kind of hope and agency and motivation, which are also areas where I think education systems, again, generally need to do a better job than what has been the case earlier.
Thank you, Olli-Pekka, for sharing your thoughts there. There's a lot to take in, a lot to think about there with what you said. But as we finish off now, could you perhaps share with us, what are your hopes for educators? What are your hopes for students going into the future?
Well, my hope is kind of very, very simple. It is for them to have the understanding that life is messy and complex. It's true. But at the same time, life is extremely exciting and beautiful. And as I was referring to the visits to schools, those are the things that I often see. I see the curiosity in the eyes of young people. I see them hungry for knowing more. I see them hungry to tell their answers, to have a kind of a say of what would make things better. And those are exactly the things that I'm hoping for the young people, because that open mind, I read just the other day a quote, which I think it was a perfect one, which said that mind is like an umbrella. It works better when open. And I think there's so much truth in that we are capable of reaching so much more when we are open to the world.
Olli-Pekka, thank you so much for coming on the Global Ed podcast and sharing your life, your experiences and your thoughts on education. I wish you all the very best as you continue to lead the IB to make a better and more peaceful world.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Gavin.
Next time on the Global Ed podcast.
A number of students lost their home. Some of our teachers lost their home as well. In fact, a teacher nearly lost her life. She was just clinging onto the tree and she was just about to say, let go, maybe that's it already. And someone actually grabbed her from behind and pulled her out.
In the next episode, I speak with David, a Singaporean who moved to Timor-Leste with his family to start a school. He shares how the school embedded itself in the community and how it helped the people overcome the devastating floods that swept through the country. If you have enjoyed listening to the Global Ed podcast, please subscribe and follow me, Gavin Kinch, on LinkedIn.